I'll be honest with you, and I've not really talked about this much. I got to the final stage of Love Island. It took me to 25 years old to actually sit down and think to myself, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing all this when I don't like it?
What sparked that thing in you?
I'm sure I could pinpoint it. I'm sure I could. One day, I put 25 grand into one watch. Being honest, it was all the money I had. I have to sell this watch. If I can sell it, I can prove the business. It took me about...
What were the few things you tried and you felt like, yeah, this isn't for me?
What I actually did was I went from Barclays, I quit, and then a few months later I joined a fintechy startup finance company for 3 months. Because I thought maybe it's the big corporates, maybe a startup would suit me. I quickly learned that that wasn't the case either. It was more just being in the corporate world. So for 3 months, and then I quit again.
How much do you think they will need initially to even get a few watches?
So there's a myth about the watch business that you need hundreds of thousands.
That's why I think, like, that's literally when I think of reselling watches, I'm like, how do you buy a Rolex 10K? What's one of your most expensive watches you have sold? And how much profit you made of that?
Like you said, it's more about the profit you make on a watch, not the total sale price and the revenue. But I've made
Before we get started with today's podcast, I have a small favor to ask. 95% of you guys watching have not subscribed yet. In order to help me bring on bigger guests, if you've learned anything from any of my podcast episodes, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Firstly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure.
I really like your journey as a watch reseller, and I want to dive into that. But before that, I want to go back to your story prior to becoming a watch reseller. So what was your life like from school to maybe a job?
Yeah, my story's a little bit different, but probably not super interesting. I had a pretty decent upbringing. The interesting part, I guess, in my life was that I left home at 13 years old. I went to boarding school, which is it's not that common for people to do, but I went to boarding school, ended up loving it. Some people hate it. So for 5 years, I was living in a house with other boys. It was a mixed school, but yeah, I was at boarding school for 5 years. Loved it. Yeah. I have some very interesting stories to tell about it. I mean, I got beaten the shit out of. It was a very traditional, bullying was quite big when you were younger. Because I lived in a house, right, as a 13-year-old boy with an 18-year-old who was upper sixth, in sixth form. And we had to share the same space. So do anything wrong, you're just getting it, which sounds terrible, but in some ways, it built me. It was like a character building phase of my life. But I enjoyed it despite that. And then I went to uni. I went to university in Leeds. I did a business degree. And that wasn't because I wanted to or thought I should. I think maybe 90% of people, I was just gotta go to uni now. That's the thing people do, not consciously thinking about what I actually wanted. So I went to uni, I graduated. And even at that point, graduating and getting on a grad scheme, still didn't once give it a thought that maybe there's something else I could do. So I got on a grad scheme in a IT tech firm in Oxford, did that for a year, and then went into banking and finance for 4 years.
Wow.
So that was my life prior to becoming a watch dealer and having my own business. And it really did take me up until the age of 25. I'm 28 now. It took me to 25 years old to actually sit down and think to myself, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing all this when I don't like it? I don't want to be doing it. And that's when I made a change.
What sparked that thing in you?
I'm sure I could pinpoint it. I'm sure I could, but there was a moment for me when I woke up and I was like, I cannot do this for another 40 years. Being in the corporate, I was at Barclays, so being in the corporate world for another 40 years scared the hell out of me. Really, really scared me. And there was a real big fear that I'd regret not giving it a go, having my own business. So I think the spark for me was just being scared of not trying, not taking the risk.
I love that so much. And I think the power of not power, but that thing about having a regret 60 years later when you're in your deathbed, it's the worst. But you just said you had a job at Barclays. Now, getting a job at Barclays is not an easy thing, and not everyone has this privilege to get a job at Barclays. When you thought about changing your career path, did you think like, holy crap, I worked so hard to reach it. Now, if I go somewhere and do something of my own, what if that doesn't work out? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I agree. Getting a job at Barclays is deemed as like a pinnacle for a lot of people, especially in, you know, the finance world. It's a very big, well-respected company, good salary. And my journey to Barclays was slightly different. So I didn't get on the grad scheme. Like, I'm not an academic person. There was no way I could have got on the Barclays grad scheme. Didn't have the A-levels to qualify and didn't go to a good enough uni with probably a good enough degree. So I did a 1-year grad scheme and thought, do you know what? I'm going to apply for a full-time job at Barclays now and go above the grad scheme people. So I got a job at Barclays and I was the same age as grads, but I was a grade higher in the corporate world. I wasn't a grad. I was, they call it an AVP, an assistant vice president. So at that moment I was like, oh, now I've done something. Now this is like, I've beaten the system. I've almost cheated my way to a promotion above a grad, which was really cool. And yeah, you're right. It was, at the time I was in my suit, had my little bag, felt like a big time. And thought I was earning good money, and I was maybe for my age, but it's only when you explore other things and open your eyes to other ways of making money, like myself and you do, that you really realize that working a corporate job is not gonna make you really financially stable. Well, maybe financially stable, but it's not gonna give you everything you want in life. Yeah.
I really agree with that. Now, when you were at Barclays, was there like a specific incident happened that triggered you, like, you know what, I can't do this forever? Or was it a book which you read at that moment?
I'll be honest with you, and I've not really talked about this much. So I got to the final stage of Love Island, right?
Oh, wow.
So before they start shooting Love Island, they send some people over to the villa, 5 boys, 5 girls, and they shoot for 3 days as if it was the real thing. And I was chosen to go to South Africa to stay in the villa for the winter Love Island series. And I did that. And doing it exposed me to TV, media, creators, influencers, and I met all these people. While I hated the experience, and I'm glad I didn't do it, I was exposed to this new way of how I could live and things I could be doing. So to be honest, that was my trigger. And as ridiculous as it sounds, I then went back to work and I was like, yeah, this isn't it. I don't want to do this. So that was one thing. Another thing was I started a YouTube channel maybe 6 months prior to that point and didn't really grow it to any sort of size that was worth quitting a job for. But that again made me realize that, maybe I'm quite good at this video creating thing. Maybe I like to be on camera. So it was a combination of those two things that I think pushed me to quit my job at Barclays.
Okay. I don't know if you want to share, but how did you end up being chosen for Love Island? And you went to South Africa, you said, as well, just to shoot as well. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was after work. It was like a work drinks thing with a friend that worked at Barclays at the time with me. And he was just like, you should apply for that. Like you might do well. And I applied for it and I got through all these rounds of interviews and, like literally like this, you're on camera being filmed by exec producers. And then they're like, okay, maybe we'll see what this guy's like and we'll give him a shot. So flew over and yeah, that was, it was a strange experience to do that.
I've only watched one full season of Love Island.
Yeah.
And I have heard many stories how it's kind of fake as well and kind of the things which are there is so weird as well.
Yeah, it is. So when I was there, there would always be, what do they call it? I think they call it a runner, like basically an assistant producer will be in the house with you at all times.
Okay.
So times they'd be like, Phil, come here. Like off camera. I'd go into this little closet and they'd be like, do you like Emma? And I'd be like, no, not really. They'd be like, oh, okay, do you like Sophie? And I'd be like, yeah, she seems quite a nice girl. And then they're like, okay, go speak to Sophie now and we'll tell the camera guys to focus on you. It's very well orchestrated. Yes, people fall in love on Love Island. It will happen. But it's all coordinated. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh, hell nah. Like, this is just not it. The guys that I was there with, I loved and they're great guys. But for me, I didn't like the experience.
Any guys who were there were really well known now?
There was one guy that's pretty well known. There's a couple of girls that are now like big influencers from my time there. It's a great platform. It's a really good platform to go onto Love Island, but it just wasn't for me.
What if you did end up being chosen and you went there? What would your life look like?
Well, it was partly being chosen and partly putting yourself forward to be chosen. So I kind of made it clear that it wasn't something I'd be interested in. If they were kind of like, no, we need you, like you'd be amazing, maybe I would have done. But yeah, my life would be different. I think there's only a handful of people from Love Island that will actually make it big. And then it's only the smart people of that handful that actually go on to do amazing things.
Yes.
Like, do you know Chris Williamson?
I know Molly May, but not.
Molly May's done extremely well. But there's a guy who was on season 1 of Love Island called Chris, and he's doing a podcast with David Goggins at the moment, and you'll recognize him. He's Modern Wisdom, I think, is his YouTube channel. He's massive, and he's done amazing because he's had the mindset to actually do something with his opportunity.
Yeah.
Whereas most others, nothing against it, but they'll take any brand deal that comes their way. They'll be like, yes to Boohoo, yes to this teeth whitening, whatever. And it kind of just reduces their brand image to very little, but it can be good.
I get that a lot. And I think if you use it right, like Molly May, an example is, she became a big influencer. I guess also Tommy Fury is another example, but then Tommy Fury had boxing and all of that as well. But now so you come back to your job, you decide this is not for you.
Yeah.
And then what happens? You just start dabbling into things, and then comes watch reselling. But how did you get to watch reselling?
Yeah, so quitting my job at Barclays was a full year of what Gary Vee would say, tasting, trying new things, exploring, and really taking the chance to see what I like, what I'm good at, what I don't like, and what I'm not good at. And that's pretty much it. And once I found the combination of I'm good at this and I really enjoy it and put them together, that moment for me was amazing. And it was YouTube combined with watches. So I just started to make more content on YouTube about watches. I showed my collection. People loved the videos. It got more views. And I was like, okay, I'll do more of this kind of content on watches. And then I was thinking, okay, I'm doing all this. I'm getting lots of good views, but how can I monetize it? And so one day I put 25 grand into one watch, which is a lot of money. And being honest, it was all the money I had at that point. And I put 25K into one watch, and I said to myself, I have to sell this watch. If I can sell it, I can prove the business in some way. It took me about a month to sell it, but I made maybe like £1,000 or 1.5K on that. And I was like, oh, damn, if I can do that maybe 4, 5, 10 times a month, it could be very good money. Yeah. And slowly I did start to sell more watches, and I built a business, and now I have a brand, and I'm selling watches now. It's been about a year, and I love it. It's great fun. It's pretty good money. Yeah.
So the timeline has just been a year, you said, of you doing this
just over a year, having my own business. Yeah.
That's crazy to think as well. Now, you said you had this 1 year of like testing and thing, and I feel like many people listening to this right now have this one question, like, what do I do? What do I start? What are the few things you tried and you felt like, yeah, this isn't for me? Or like, was there a thing the step you took to try this as your first thing? Or like, okay, let me try this because I'm leaning towards this more.
Yeah.
Or how was your mindset back then?
Yeah. So what I actually did was I went from Barclays, I quit. And then a few months later, I joined a fintechy startup finance company for 3 months, because I thought maybe it's the big corporates that I didn't enjoy. Maybe it was just the corporate politics and the games that I didn't enjoy, but maybe a startup would suit me. I quickly learned that wasn't the case either. It was more just being in the corporate world. Yeah. So for 3 months, and then I quit again. Sound like a right quitter, don't I? But it was needed for me to know that wasn't it either. I then thought, I love sport. Maybe it's just the fact that it's finance and it's too corporate. Maybe if I go into the sports world and do like a sponsorship job or like a brand manager or whatever it may be. I didn't end up getting a job, but I was quick to realize that it would be the same bullshit. It would still be, you're in an office, which I recognized wasn't for me. And it is for some people, but it wasn't for me. And then my next step was creating content for somebody else. So I was creating TikTok videos for a business, and they were paying me every month to make TikTok videos. And then maybe 6 to 9 months or so, then I was like, okay, now I'm just going to do this for me full time. But it's a good question because not everybody's in a financial position to try everything that I did.
Was there a thing you didn't like in terms of you had saved up, which gave you kind of like a backup?
Yeah, I saved a little bit of money, but during the pandemic, I went to Manchester. Okay. So I knew that rent would be slashed in half immediately. So I moved to Manchester partly because I didn't have a job at the time and knew I could live in Manchester without having a job. So I did that. I could have moved home, but I think my ego would have been too damaged to do that.
Yeah.
So I didn't move home. But it's a good point though. Like if you think long term and you really want to get to where you're going, moving home it's really not bad. If it helps you save money, if it helps you try all the things that you want to try, do it. It really doesn't matter. So I was just in a good position to try as much as I could or try what I wanted to try. But to answer the question, there wasn't like a big variety of things that I tried. I didn't like go into art or just something else. It was I was kind of going down the right path anyway, but managed to find it slowly.
I mean, you tried few things, and people struggle with even trying that many things as well, and they're like, "Oh, I can't find why." Like, well, you haven't tried anything, so I always find that question really fascinating because I always get that asked, like, "What do I start, Chad?" Yeah. I'm like, try out things. You will find out what you want to carry on doing. But I think at the same time, the problem with most people is that they will want to try so many things at the same time and then fail at all of them because they won't have the time and energy to put in them.
Yeah.
When you started making YouTube videos about the watches, you had watches already, or that was the first time you started making a kind of little collection of watches?
Yeah, I bought my first watch in 2015. I spent all my student loan on an Omega Seamaster. I think I was like just under 1.5k as a student loan to spend. I spent every single penny on that watch. Dumb. It's a dumb thing to do. It really is. Like, luckily I didn't actually lose money on it because the value went up over a few years' time, but it was a dumb thing to do, but I was just so passionate about watches. So that was my first watch. And then I bought a couple of Rolexes, 2017, 2018. I bought an AP in 2019. And that was my little personal collection, which was worth quite a lot of money. And every single penny I earned from my Barclays job, I'd put into watches. Every bonus I got, bang, buy a watch. Not actually thinking this is going to make me good money in the future, which it did. More just because I just wanted to have the watches.
Where did the passion for watches grow from?
My dad had an Omega Seamaster, which is why that was my first watch that I bought. I think I just admired that my dad had this really cool like Bond watch, James Bond watch, and seeing it on his wrist every day as a youngster, I was like, that's cool, that's badass, you know.
Is your dad like an entrepreneur himself, or
he's quite senior in a business, but he's in the corporate world in sales. He's made very good money in sales, but he's always liked watches. So it was one of the first things me and my dad bonded over. So I think he got me into watches, and that's why. Yeah, I'll probably give him all the credit, to be fair. He's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, I guess, yeah.
I mean, he's probably sparked a little thing in your head when growing up.
Yeah.
When you left your home at 13, then you haven't been back home. Like after boarding school, uni, you have never literally...
I've never lived back at home, no. So at 13, you go to boarding school and it's like every maybe 6 to 8 weeks, you go home for like a weekend. Unless it's like Christmas holidays or summer holidays where I'm back for like a month or 2 months. But no,
being that young and staying away from home, do you think it was beneficial, or? I
think I can only say yes, it was beneficial because it's the only life I've known.
That's true.
I think if I were to have kids, I would be happy for them to leave at maybe 16 and go to sixth form college at away from home. 13 is very young. I'm still learning and growing. I was still a boy. I hadn't gone through puberty. Like I didn't know anything. What it did for me was it made me very independent very quickly, and it taught me a lot of life lessons early. Yeah. I had friends going to boarding school at 9, 7 years old, which is very early, very, very early. And another good thing about the boarding school, it was very international. So I was at a young age, I socialized and mixed with all kinds of people from all over the world, which looking back now, that was amazing for me to do. Yeah.
That's great. I was in a boarding school back in India for 1 year.
Oh yeah.
And it was my worst time in life.
Yeah.
Because you wake up at 5 o'clock. Like that was my thing. Wake up at 5 o'clock. By 6, you have to be upstairs to revise. Then 7 o'clock, you're going to be eating, going to school, come back, revise, repeat. And it's like for 365 days, you do the same thing. And then I could not. And plus, we used to get hit there with bamboo sticks. Yeah. So for me,
that's nice.
For me, it was a whole different experience. That's why whenever I hear the word boarding school in the UK, I don't know how the life must be, but definitely not getting hit, I guess.
We didn't get, was it the teachers that were hitting you with bamboo sticks? So we got hit with pull cues by the sixth formers.
Oh, wow.
So like, you know, there's I don't know what it was, just a bit of fun for the older boys. Like, but boarding school for me was good. I enjoyed it.
Completely.
Yeah.
I think I will definitely, I've heard many stories about boarding school from heroes also. I think I can understand from
it's kind of like you can look at it as like, yes, we had to wake up at 6:37. I had to go to church pretty much every day at that school. And then you have lessons. You have to go for food at a certain time every day. Then you have not homework, but we called it prep time. Prep time 1, dinner, prep time 2. And then at 8:15, we were allowed out to socialize. But if you look at that in another way, which I did, I was with my best friends every single day. Yeah. I shared a room at 13 years old with 5 boys. It was a sleepover every single night, which was for me was amazing. But I get it. For some people, being away from home that young is very difficult.
For me, it was about the fact of being away from home. I used to miss my home like every day. I would just feel so sad. I would cry every day.
Really?
Because, I don't know. I was just like really close to my parents, especially my dad. So I was just feel like so bad. But talking back to the watches part, I feel like, let's say someone wants to get into the watches. How much do you think they will need initially to even get a few watches?
So there's a myth about the watch business that you need hundreds of thousands.
That's why I think like that's literally when I think of reselling watches, I'm like, how do you buy a Rolex 10K?
How do you have these 10, 20 watches when they're like 10, 20K each? That's like 250, 300K.
Exactly.
But the misconception is that you need hundreds of thousands or millions to have a successful business and to start a watch business. But actually, if you have the trust in people, there's no reason why you couldn't give me your watch and say, Phil, I want you to help me sell this watch. And I'll say to you, okay, cool, I'll help you sell it. And as a favor, I'll take 5% of the sale price as a commission on the sale. And that's called consignment. And I do a lot of consignment where I will have people's watches. I'll help sell them because I have a platform to sell the watches. And it means I don't outlay any cash. There's no risk to me. But I still make a margin when I sell those watches, and you're happy as the seller that you've got a lot of money for your watch.
Okay, that makes sense. You said you bought an AP yourself as well.
Yeah, I've got an AP. At the moment, I've got in my personal collection, I've got a Rolex and an AP. Which I bought the Rolex for 6K. I bought the AP for 15K. The Rolex is now worth like 20, and the AP is now worth like 35, 40. So in a few years, They've probably done more than most stocks would do, or maybe a house might do. So
I was just going to ask that question: is that, in your opinion, what's a better investment, a watch or a property?
So I don't think I can answer properly because I've never bought a property. I've never really looked into it too much, but I still rent. Yeah, I'm late 20s. I still rent, and I've not bought a property myself, and I have these conversations with myself all the time. Like, should I be buying a property because I'm spending a lot of money on rent? I don't know the answer. It depends on the market. At the moment, both markets are pretty crap. What I shouldn't say that promoting a watch business, but the watch prices at the moment are coming down, which isn't a bad thing. But same with houses. If you own any of those assets, it's not a good thing. But if you're looking to buy right now, probably a good thing, unless prices go down even more. I don't know. What I would say is, if you don't know, research until you do and you have a clear answer, or get a mentor that can help you with that solution. But I enjoy watches. So my preference is watches. I'd rather have it on my wrist. I'd rather own it and enjoy it.
Than live in one.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense as well. And your passion is watches, so completely makes sense. But I feel like the watch market since 2020 was going sky high. And I was just looking at it from the outside. I'm like, will I ever be able to afford a good watch by looking at the prices going up? But the watch market itself and watch dealers right now, you specifically or mainly resell Rolexes, and getting a Rolex from a AD or authorized distributor is not as easy. But I saw a recent video of yours. You got it so quick. Like, is there any tricks you can use to get one from an AD?
Yeah, you're right. Getting a Rolex from an authorized dealer, an AD, is almost impossible. You can have all the money in the world, but an AD would still not sell you the watch. And it's such a bizarre thing. I guess it happens in the car market and maybe handbags as well, some really sought after ones. It's a very strange thing that you can have all the money, but actually it's not about money, because everybody wants a Rolex and anyone walking through the door would buy it. So at that point, the sales rep has to really be like, okay, is this guy a genuine person? Is he going to resell it? Is he going to sell it as soon as he walks out the door? Or is he going to keep it for 10, 20 years, which is what they want? Are you going to spend more money with me on jewelry and other watch brands to help with their revenue? They're treating it as a business to help hit their sales targets. So it's very difficult. And something that I always advise to people if they're wanting to buy their first watch from an AD, go into the store, introduce yourself, be very nice and friendly. Don't ask for a watch. Don't mention what you want and maybe even why you want it to begin with. Just build a relationship and connect with them in some way. Find common ground and just talk. Be friendly. If you're friendly with them and they like you, they will want to sell you a watch. Doesn't matter if you've got millions, billions. If you walk in and say, I want a GMT Pepsi, I want a Submariner, they're going to say no, they don't care. But if you walk in and it's like, hey, I've just moved here, just thought I'd come check you guys out, see what this is about. I love watches. I've got this watch. I got it when I was 17, blah, blah, blah. If you build a story and a profile for yourself, they're much more likely to sell you a watch.
As a reseller, do you find it hard to get watches now?
Yeah, it's pretty much impossible for me. Some ADs might have seen a YouTube video that I've made and just they're like, well, you're a reseller, you have a watch business. We're not gonna sell you a watch. Most dealers are blacklisted. They just will not sell a watch to me because they're gonna presume I would buy a watch and then sell it as soon as I walk away. Yeah. Which, to be fair, yeah, probably it's the business I'm in.
How do you overcome that then?
How do I overcome it?
Well, you can kind of do the thing of getting it from people.
Yes. So because I can't get watches myself from authorized dealers, people like you can, other people can, and they might want to sell their watch. I never encourage somebody to sell a watch to me. I will always be open if they want to DM me or message me and say, I've got this Submariner, I want to sell it. I'll say, cool, I'll help you sell it, or this is my offer and I'll buy it. Okay. So although I can't get them directly, almost everyone else can.
Yeah, makes sense.
If they're looking.
What's one of your most expensive watches you have sold? And how much profit you made off that?
Okay, that's a better question. That's a better question. Okay, so I have never sold a Richard Mille, an RM, which are hundreds of thousands. I have a Patek at the moment that I'm trying to sell. I've sold an AP for about 50k. Is the highest, which in the world of watches is not super, super expensive. Other watch dealers in the country will have sold watches worth hundreds of thousands. But I've never sold a watch over 50k, which I'm fine with, because like you said, it's more about the profit you make on a watch, not the total sale price and the revenue. But I've made just shy of 10k on a watch.
10k on a watch?
On one watch. But that's an outlier. That's not an everyday, every week thing. That was a one-off, just because I got an amazing deal and I managed to sell it at pretty good price. That was pretty much it. It was actually a distressed seller that needed to get rid, and I was like, okay, I'll buy it. And that's why it was not a common thing. I need to stress that. But a typical profit margin on a sale is, I probably wouldn't go lower than £500.
Okay.
And I would be very happy with 1.52k. But 500 to 1.52k is typical.
How many? Well, now you're doing it for 1 year full time, and I'm sure it's sustainable as well.
Yeah.
How many watches do you need to sell to make it a sustainable business, or how many do you sell on average?
I like to sell at least 4 or 5 a month.
Okay.
And that will quite comfortably allow me to live. But I've sold 20 watches in a month.
20 bloody watches.
Yeah, I know. And at the start, I sold one watch in a month. So it fluctuates like any business will, depending on the market and the seasons that we go through in the year. But yeah, I've had some amazing months. And actually, it's an interesting point. So just before I started my business, there was no better time and no better time to start a watch business than when I did. And that wasn't because I recognized it was a great time to do it. It was just pure luck. The market had never gone up the way it did. So I was very lucky in Feb last year. Everyone wanted a watch. Yeah. Investors from all over the world were pumping money into watches for a number of different reasons. But yeah, I was very lucky. Yeah.
I guess there's always a thing about like the timing you have. Most people say, I got lucky, but it's the timing as well. And for you, it was both in one. When most people try and do something they're doing as a side hustle first. And did you ever resell a watch ever when you were at Barclays or any other jobs you were at?
Nope.
Just collecting back then?
Just collected, just had a personal collection. I would advise if someone wanted to get into the watch market, keep your full-time job and after work at the weekends, create a little business, Instagram page, YouTube, if you're into that, and start trying to sell watches. And if you get to a point where you sell 1, 2, 3 a month, it's probably relatively sustainable because depending on the profit margin you make, you can easily cover your bills and make some good money.
How do you find clients to resell the watches to?
My biggest platform is YouTube. Well, it's not, it's TikTok, but purely for watches, I will make a weekly watch video on YouTube. People will watch it and I can redirect to my Instagram and they can ask me. Yeah, it's pretty much all through YouTube. Instagram's growing quite quickly, but yeah, it's all because people watch me. They might decide that they like who I am and want to buy from me instead of a larger business. But YouTube is, in a way, free marketing for me. Yes, there are costs associated, but I've done no paid ads. I've done no sponsorships. I just have my camera, walk around London, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go sell this watch today. I'm gonna go pick up this watch. If you guys want this Submariner, hit me up. And that's how it works.
Do you think it's risky though? Because firstly, do you wear a watch in London?
This is the state of London right now, and most of the world. No, I don't, and I'm more of a target than most people because I'm on YouTube. People, if someone were to see me with my backpack, they might be like, he might have a Rolex in his bag. Exactly. So I do have to be careful. And all my colleagues in the watch world, they're always like, Phil, you've got to be careful. Like, stop going out and get in the trains with watches. And it's a fair point. I am super, super careful though. Super, super careful.
Because I'm always thinking like, because you especially put yourself on YouTube as well, and many people probably recognize you as well. So yeah, I could imagine how safe you have to be in that thing as well.
It's scary because every day it seems someone is getting robbed. They're at knife point, gun point, and it's always a watch that. There was
an interesting story of Amir Khan, the boxer. Did you hear it? Of what happened? Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Have a professional boxer. Have you had any incidents like that?
I haven't had any incidents where I've been in danger or had my health at risk. But I know people that I would consider friends that have had watches stolen in Mayfair at night. And it's kind of like advice I would give. If you're going on a night out or you're going to be out late or in an area of London you don't know, do not wear the watch. It's not worth it. Yes, it might look great that you've got an AP on in a Mayfair club or restaurant, but people are crafty, man. People are crafty and they'll do anything for a bit of money, some people. So it's not worth the risk. If you're getting an Uber somewhere, there and back, maybe that's okay. But also there are people that, like, I have to be careful what I say, but there are cases where like a waiter might work for someone who is outside and the waiter will be like, okay, this guy in the restaurant's got an AP on. Tell the guy outside, they'll be waiting for you. So it's almost like you're never safe, which is horrible to say. Yeah. Because when you spend so much money on a watch, you want to go out and enjoy it. Dude, I'm moving to Dubai. I swear on my life. Like, Dubai is like the safest place in the world. Yeah. You can wear a watch. I hate the fact that you can't wear a watch in London. So I'm going to Dubai later this year. I'm doing it.
So you're planning to?
I'm gonna give it a good go.
Because I heard from a friend of mine who was like, I was in Dubai and your wife could be out on a beach at 3 o'clock and she will be the safest person in the world. That's how safe Dubai is as well.
Don't need to lock your car door. You don't need to lock your house. You can leave an AP on the beach and someone will take it in. Because the consequence of committing a crime is severe.
Yeah.
So people they don't live in fear in Dubai, but it's reinforced.
That's how it's supposed to be. And I feel like here it's not like that. It's like I'll go and I'll come out and I can live life back to normal.
Yeah.
But talking about investment watches specifically, what are the things a person has to look for in an investment watch? Are there specific type of watches, or there is a certain thing you can look for in a watch?
Yeah, there are a few things, and it's all, the interesting thing is with watches and investments, it's all speculation. Like stocks, nobody knows what's going to happen. You can have an educated guess based on macro, micro, economic factors, all this kind of stuff, demand, but nobody knows. And I cannot educate people or advise people to buy a particular watch. All I can do is look at the past and maybe help guide them and say, well, this is what has happened with this watch in terms of value increase, blah, blah, blah. But it's very much like a Rolex Submariner is like Google stock or Apple stock, or maybe not Tesla. It's a classic Rolex. A black Submariner is stable, probably not going to go up too much. It's probably not going to go down too much. It's just a stable, very, very slow increase, or like a Coca-Cola or something like that. And then you have a watch like a GMT root beer, which is the two-tone or the full rose gold GMT root beer, which is considered like a hype watch. And that might be more of like in the crypto world, like a Dogecoin or a Shiba or whatever the hell it was, which is like there's more risk, but the reward, if it pays off, is big time. And we saw the root beer, the GMT Rolex root beer, go up by 20K in the space of like a few months. But now what's happened is it's come back down 20K. So I will never advise. I will help and give my opinion perhaps. But yes, you have to be careful. I would always say, do you like the watch? Would you be happy if you were to lose £1,000 on it? Would you still want to keep it and enjoy it? You know, that's the best way to be, I think.
What makes a Submariner so invaluable?
It's considered a classic Rolex watch. It's probably the most recognizable watch in the world. A black Rolex Submariner. Most people know it. If you see it on, even if you're not into watches, you see someone with it's got a black bezel, black dial. You're like, is that a Rolex? You know what I mean? And you don't need to know that it's a Rolex to know it's a Rolex. But I mean, it was a Bond watch for many years before Omega. It's been 70 years in production. Wow. So, you know, it's been around.
There's history to watches. Like you just told me, like it's a Bond watch. That's why it's also like a really famous watch now. Makes sense.
There's a lot of history to watches. A lot of history, but yeah.
My friend prefers Hublot over Rolex.
Don't tell me this. I was with Nico, the Irish guy, the angry Irish guy that people say, a couple of days ago, and I said to him, I was like, do you actually really hate Hublot? And he was like, yeah, I fucking hate it. I was like, why? And he was just like, they put it as, they put a really cheap mechanism movement into the watch and sell it as a premium watch. So actually it's like a really tacky, shitty watch, but they market it and promote it as this really luxurious item, and they charge 10, 20 grand for it when it's probably worth a few £1,000s, which is his beef with Hublot. He admits that marketing, they're genius. They've done amazing with what they do with sponsorship in football. And I said to him as well, I was like, okay, Nico, if you were the chief exec of Hublot, what would you change on day one? What would you do? And I can't remember what he said actually, but he basically was just like, I probably wouldn't want to be chief exec, but I think he just did. I don't remember what he said. I think he might have dodged the question thinking about it, but he actually does hate the brand. It's interesting that your friend, why did your friend buy the Hublot? Do you know?
He hasn't bought it, but he prefers, he's like, well, that's the person who's behind the scenes right now.
Oh, right. We're having chats after this, dude. I know you can hear me.
So he's told me, he's like, just look at Hublot. It looks so nice. I'm like, but look at Rolex. Like a Submariner looks so good compared to a Hublot. And he was talking about the classic Hublots for like, there was one for like 10.2K, which was a gold, and it's just classic 2 downs.
Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah.
If you've got 10 grand to spend on a watch, there are 10 other watches that you should get before a Hublot. Maybe more.
From your educated guesses, what are the 5 watches which can be a good investment watches under 10K?
Right. Okay. In terms of brands or just Rolex?
I would say all brands.
Okay. I would say if you're looking to get your first watch, entry level, under £10,000, I would say if you can get a Rolex from an authorized dealer, brand new from the store, buy a Rolex, Submariner, GMT, Datejust, Oyster Perpetual, amazing watches, really, really good watches. And yes, the resale value is higher, so obviously it's a good watch to buy. Omega, an amazing brand with an awesome history. Omega watches, a Seamaster, a Speedmaster, they're really, really solid watches. Tudor is kind of like the sister brand to Rolex. So Rolex own Tudor, but Tudor, the quality is fantastic and it's half the price also to Rolex. So Tudor's another great brand. Perhaps maybe a Cartier, maybe. If you're looking at maybe like £500 to £1,000, but like a Tissot, like you can have an automatic watch, Tissot, a PRX, cool different dial options. It's a cool watch and you wouldn't know that it's worth £500. So there's a lot you can do between £500 to 10K. It's just where you sit, I guess. And
you have sold watches to famous people, right?
Have I sold watches to famous people?
Or have you actually? Not you.
I have conversations with famous people about watches.
Okay. How did you end up there?
I think, do you know what? It all comes from YouTube. Someone will stumble across a video and they'll be like, "Oh, I love what you do. This is my watch collection." Like a good example is, the Vamps, the band, the Vamps. You might.
I probably haven't heard.
It was like a boy band. A lot of the younger girls kind of loved that band. It was kind of like a One Direction equivalent kind of band, right? The lead guitarist. We speak all the time about watches, and I went to one of his shows a couple of weeks ago at the O2. Footballers, athletes, actors. It's amazing. When I first got into this world, it's just amazing. Like the range of different people that like a bit of metal on their wrist and are so passionate about it. It's ridiculous. Because it, like I said, it is just a bit of metal on a wrist that tells your time like your phone does. But there's this thing that just connects us all and creates a bond. It's fascinating.
From what you're saying, I feel like the watch community is a lot less toxic than many other.
Now.
No?
Hold your horses.
Tell me more about it.
Hold your horse. The watch community is for the most part very nice, but I get my fair share of hate, disrespect on every single video. All the time. I think because people don't feel like I deserve to be in the position I'm in, or I'm not some sort of expert like other dealers. And I'm kind of like, no, I've been doing this for a year. I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert, but I'm documenting my journey and I'm showing you guys what I do know. And this is my passion. And I think people have a hard time accepting that, perhaps because they're doing something they hate day to day. And I think it's a reflection of what they're doing, to be honest, more so what I'm doing wrong. So yeah, it's just interesting that someone can hate on somebody for being in a business for 1 year, and I'm self-aware enough to know that I shouldn't be looking at comments and it shouldn't get me down, and I don't anymore, and it doesn't bother me. But to go back to the toxic point, is it toxic? Yeah, I guess it can be within the business.
I think every community is a bit of toxic.
It's all the same. It's all the same, and it's always based on opinions. It's like I can be like, I really dislike Patek. You know Iman Gadzhi?
Yeah.
He came on my podcast and he was like...
Wait, he came on your podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen that episode.
It must have been 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
But Iman basically said to me, he was like, I've got this Patek here. It's a steel Patek Nautilus. I don't really like it. I feel like the bracelet's flimsy. As soon as I posted that and it got into the watch world, that Iman thought that this Patek watch, this prestigious, luxurious Patek watch was poor quality and flimsy. Everyone was just like, what is he talking about? Blah, 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 blah. He's absolutely insane. He's stupid. What does this kid know? And even Nico was on him as well in a funnier, nicer way. But it's all based on opinion. It's like with cars or watches or whiskey. It's like, I like something, you like another thing. Cool. Shake hands and just go our separate ways. You know, like, who cares?
Yeah, completely makes sense. And That's really interesting because I always thought that from what you like, what I see from the outside world, that maybe the watch community is a lot better, but completely makes sense.
A lot of the times it's nice, but
yeah. I mean, that's everything. You have to look from perspective as well.
Yeah.
What's a normal day in the life for you on a day you're selling a watch?
Yeah, so I try and get up as early as possible.
Yeah.
I will try and exercise. It makes me feel great. I'm ready to attack the day. I don't go to the gym really. I like to run a lot. Okay. So I'll go for a run. Regrettably, I have to spend a lot of time on this bloody thing because all my business comes through this. Instagram, YouTube comments, emails. It's all on my phone. And I hate that I have to do that. I really, really hate it. I really do. But also it's what makes me money. So I have to do it. So Instagram, I'll be messaging people. If I'm selling or buying, it's all through Instagram mainly, or email. While I'm doing all of this, I might go to travel to Manchester to pick up a watch or sell a watch. I'll have my camera with me, like I said. I'll be documenting what I do. I'll be filming. And that's pretty much my day. It's not like super exciting. The thing is, I don't have a physical store where a lot of big dealers that you might have heard of, like Trotters or
no one, Samuels or something. I don't know. That's in Brand Cross.
But these big businesses that do amazing, they all have a physical store, and they have to be there every day of the week. And personally, I want the lifestyle brand. I want the lifestyle business. I don't want to be tied down to a store, and because I would feel trapped. I think I've learned that about myself. Ali Abdaal talks about having a lifestyle business that he wants, and I'm very much of the same opinion that I want to be able to go to Dubai next week and just chill and relax if I need to, work remotely if I can. So my days aren't super exciting. They're just not. But I
think what you're living is someone's dream life. And I feel like in a way.
Yes. And I have to remind myself that I get DMs all the time. Like, I love that you've started a business, Phil. Like, I want to do the same thing. Can you help? So I get that I am doing what a lot of people would want to do. And I've made videos on how to become a watch dealer. There's no real secret. I'll share everything I can. Anybody can do it. So I'd encourage anyone to start if they're interested. But
people just don't want to take the risk.
There is a risk. Yeah. There's the money thing as well.
Did you have the fear of failure when you first gave it a go?
When I first bought that watch, I bought a Rolex Daytona, Black Dial Rolex Daytona, 25K, or might have been 24K. It wasn't was it a feel? I was scared that I would be stuck with that watch forever and nobody would want to buy it. So kind of, but I also just kind of knew I'd make it work. And even I always had the mindset that if the watch thing didn't work out, I'm qualified enough to get a job in a bank. Like I can apply for, even if it's not finance, I could probably go into tech or something. So I will never be stuck. Even if tomorrow my business fails and I stop YouTube, I will still have a pretty good salary in a normal corporate office job. So it's not even really a risk, because when you realize that actually the safety net is pretty good once you get to a certain point, I can always move back home, and I never will. But I'm in a good position where I still have family that would allow me to go back home if I needed. So I'm just like, I'm in my 20s, like I've got to go for it. And I still consider myself to be like past it. I look at people like you, people like Iman, 22, he's 23 now, same as you. And I'm like, what the hell was I doing at 23? Well, I'm like, I've wasted so many years. I'm like, I should have started a YouTube channel at 18. I should have started my own business way before that, like 16, 17, because there's loads of these drop shippers now making millions. And I'm just like, I didn't even know how to tie a shoe. No, I did. But you know what I mean? Like I didn't know anything at that age. And I praise and admire people like yourself that know so much so young and have done so much and made so much money. It's incredible. So there's part of me that's like, damn, I wish I started sooner, but I also thank my younger self for just starting.
Yeah. I think it's, there's a great saying is that the best time to start was yesterday, but the second best time is to start today. Yeah. And no one can regret when we're going to start. And
another good one as well is the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. You know? Yeah. So it's one of those, isn't it?
It's one of those things. But I feel like, you're still too young for being a watch reseller, because I see many watch resellers. I'll just see an old man wearing a suit and a tie and coming and showing you a watch case. Whereas you're like a modern type watch reseller. And I don't know many, maybe because I'm not in that kind of industry. But from what I see, your watch business really kind of has a good branding image as well, because Watch Life is your brand, right?
Yeah, Watch Life is my company and my brand. And you're right, I am different. I've kind of broken the mold in some ways, because what other watch dealer is going to wear a brown hat and a pink hoodie?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of purists in the watch world that hate me for that, because I'm not the blueprint of what a watch dealer has always been. And I've broken it, and actually I've done well because of who I am. Yep. People can relate to me more easily, and people like that I show my life on YouTube, whereas other watch dealers perhaps wouldn't do that. But yeah, what I do is different. And also what's interesting is all the watch dealers that you may come across in the UK, they were all watch dealers that now turn to TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Okay. Whereas I was the complete opposite. I was on YouTube and TikTok and all this, and then decided to start a watch business. So again, that's very unique, I think, still. And again, it's probably another reason why people might look at me and be like, he's just like a YouTuber, TikToker guy. And it's like, well, no, actually, if you knew me properly and you understood my passion.
You can probably provide a service to watch dealers on how to get organic traffic or leads to buy watches. And that could be a kind of service you can provide as well, because you have done a great job in terms of getting organic. Everything you have sold is just organically without any ads as well.
Exactly. And actually, one of the first watch videos I made on my YouTube channel was with Trotters, who are based in London. And that video is now on like 250,000 views. And I think Trotters, along with other watch brands, maybe looked at that and thought, that's 250,000 people that have seen the business of Trotters, seen all their watches. I can't even imagine how much business they got off the back of that. And I'm not taking any real credit for it, but there's a potential that they made some good money off the back of that video. And I didn't have a watch business at that time. So I made nothing apart from the AdSense on YouTube. So yeah, I think it's also about the awareness, brand awareness. Like, even if, let's say, no one bought the watch, which is not a thing. They probably got 250,000 people seeing that brand, and that would have costed them so much if they'd done it through ads. Exactly. So, and I'm good pals with those guys, so it's like I would never charge for that service, but something I could have done, I guess. I probably could have, if I didn't start my own business, I could have looked into being a platform for others. But yeah, you're right. Even if people didn't buy a watch, it's great for the watch world. More people get interested in it. And Nico is the best example. I told him this the other day. I said, what you've done for the watch world is absolutely incredible. And I said, I don't think you get enough credit for what you've done. He's now got over 1 million subscribers. He's a watch guy. Like that's mad, isn't it? Like, people will watch his videos on how he reacts to other, like Andrew Tate's watch collection, whatever. And even people that don't care a single bit about watches will watch it and find it entertaining, and they'll learn something about watches, which is cool.
What's the end goal for your kind of business?
I honestly don't think there's an end goal. Like, I've not considered a buyout. I really don't think that's going to happen. I don't think many watch businesses get bought out these days. I want to grow the business, obviously. I don't want a physical store. I know that. Will I be in the UK operating here? Maybe I'll branch out to Dubai. I'd love to do that, like I said. It probably sounds really bad and amateur, but I don't have an end goal for it. I just want to be able to continue to do it. I just feel fortunate enough to do this. And maybe that's holding me back a bit, but maybe to have someone join my business and help me full time and all that kind of stuff. But at the moment, I can do everything myself. I can make some real good money doing it. I enjoy it. And like I said, it's great for my lifestyle. It really fits.
I think from what I know from managing people and everything, if you need a lifestyle business, I think you're doing stuff the right way, in terms of like, you have yourself and you're making enough to sustain your lifestyle and do the stuff which you want to do. So I feel like if your goal isn't to make like millions and millions, then I guess you're on the right path already.
Yeah, my I don't have a goal to make millions and millions through the watch business. If it happens, great. And I'll obviously do take the steps necessary to try and get closer to that. But if it means I have to have a physical store and I have to hire people and I have to do all these things like get security, I would rather not do it. I've designed my life based on comfortability, which could be holding me back, but just being maybe not comfortable, but I just get to do what I want when I want.
I think you're self-aware about this, that yes, you're comfortable and that's why you may not grow to as big as you wanted to, but that's fine because you are enjoying what you are doing right now. Yeah. And I think that's really important.
And I've seen other people take that step to grow, and I don't think there's a regret all the time, but I don't want to go through what they've gone through to get an extra bit of money.
I think there's a huge regret later on, which always comes, but most people don't talk about it because
really,
I mean, there's always regret on like some things they have done, and especially as you said, like they might think, getting a actual physical store, getting people, and yes, you can eventually kind of passivize or systemize everything, so then you can passively live off life, but it's still a lot of stress as well. But now I want to move on to the 7 deep inspired mind questions, which are the 7 questions on this podcast. At the end, I always ask, the first question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice that I have ever received. It's a weird one for me because I will always ask people for advice, and I'll always take their advice on board and do what I need to do with it. But it's a cop-out answer, but there's nothing that stands out as like
the best,
the best, or that I like live by every single day. There's really not. Something that I like to live by is just enjoying the moment. It's not advice, but a friend of mine, if I'm like on the phone to him and he's like, or I'm like complaining about this, or I've lost money on a watch, or blah blah blah, and he'll just say to me like, dude, this is living.
Yeah,
it's all good. It's fine. And as soon as he says those words, this is living, I'm kind of like, do you know what it is? And even if you go through a breakup, it's like, this is life. I'm just going to enjoy it. So I just take everything as it comes, and I don't think there's some advice that I really live by and that might just be me. And
I mean, you have a wise friend.
I don't know. Do you know what? It's interesting because you'll watch a podcast and you'll be like, oh my God, that's great advice. But you always subconsciously at least know that anyway.
Yeah.
So
it just triggers in your mind.
It triggers something.
And you're like, it's common sense. Why didn't I think of it?
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying.
It's the thing with like New Year's resolutions as well.
Yeah.
People who used to ask me in my corporate job, like, oh, what are your New Year's resolutions? Happy New Year. I'm just like, I don't have any. Like if I want to make a change, I've already done it. Or I'll do it today or tomorrow. I'm not waiting for Jan 1st or next Monday to start this thing. I'll just do it. Yeah.
I like that.
Sorry, it's a bit of a cop out.
No. It's the part where you said about being in the present or being in the moment. Yeah. It's a great piece of advice. Yeah. I actually had to write that quote down because I always used to think in the future. Yes. So it was on my wall in my old office. Yeah. The next question is, what's the worst piece of advice you received?
It would probably, the worst piece of advice would probably be, I spoke to a chief exec, I can't remember where I was, but he was basically like, do 10, 15 years, work your way up, and then consider maybe doing something else. And I was just like, right, okay. Looking back now, worst piece of advice, absolutely terrible, especially because it wasn't a good analogy is like, you have your ladder that you're climbing up, but my ladder was up against the wrong wall, basically. Yeah. So he was telling me to climb up a corporate ladder for 10, 15 years, get as high as possible. But I already knew at that point my ladder should be over there. Yeah. So that was terrible. Instead of him saying that, he should have just been like, you know, what do you want to be doing? What is your goal? Like, would you be happy to be doing this for 10 years? But instead, he probably gave me advice based on what he'd done because he thought that was the right thing to do. So, somebody telling me to stick it out and just climb something I didn't want to be climbing.
I think many people get that advice from CEOs from today. Yeah. The next question is, what is your definition of success?
My definition of success is actually what I've been able to create for myself, and that is freedom. I don't care if it's all the money in the world or enough just to live how I want to live. Success for me is financial freedom, location freedom, being able to spend time whenever I want with my friends and my girlfriend. That's it. So I have success now. The level of that success will grow over time, but I have everything. I have a lot of what I want in life already. And the other things that maybe a car and a house, I don't need them. They'd be nice. I'd be more successful when I get them. But success for me is just, waking up, doing what you want, being happy, spending time with people.
I think that's the ultimate success, which most people want in life as well.
Well, we're both in a similar position, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
100%. And one thing I would add on top of that is, for me, was fulfillment. Like, you could have the most money. I realized that later is that my goal was to get £10,000 a month and be financially free. I reached that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I still feel like it's nothing. And like, what the flip? Like, why am I still the same and everything? But then I realized it's like, to get fulfillment, it's not about money.
Yeah.
It's about doing the stuff you really want to do every single day, and enjoying that is where you get the fulfillment.
And I guess for you, it's probably, you make loads of money doing other stuff, other businesses, but this probably gives you the most fulfillment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the reason, like, even yesterday when I was recording a podcast, I was talking to the person. I'm like, this is what gives me fulfillment. Like, doing this is like the best thing I can do right now.
So cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
I love
fun.
it. I love it. Yeah.
So that was a great answer. The next question is, what was the hardest moment in your life?
Oh, do you know what? It probably wasn't hard. Breakups are hard.
Yeah.
But I'll give a different answer. It was, I didn't think this would be a difficult moment in my life, but it was because of how it was received. So when I quit my job, I did it because I knew that was right for me. And I knew that I could go on and do bigger and better things in something else. I went home it was my birthday. The first thing I told my mum was, I've quit my job at Barclays. And she absolutely lost it. She was like, what do you mean you've quit your job? What are you going to do for money? Where are you going to live? Like, what are you doing? Because in her mind, as the golden child, having a job in a bank, it was like the best thing ever. Yeah. And maybe just because she could tell her friends and family that that's the job I had. So for me to give that away so easily and just be so just chill about it, it really, really annoyed her and probably disappointed her. And it took a long time for me to prove to her that I was capable of more, and actually this YouTube thing and watch business was going to be good. And she still doesn't get YouTube. I can say, I got 100,000 views this week. She doesn't care. Actually does not care. She cares about me, but she doesn't care if a TikTok video gets millions or whatever. She's like, oh, good. Anyway, how was that? It's bizarre. Parents are bizarre sometimes. And as soon as I proved to her that, my business was making good money, it kind of made her relax a little bit more. But that was, for me, it wasn't a difficult period, but it was made to be a bit of a strange time because of her reaction.
I think one thing I did forget to ask in the podcast was, like, when you quit your job, parents is a big factor. And luckily I left my job once I had a sustainable income. So your story was completely opposite. Was your dad fine with it?
My mum and dad are polar opposites. So my dad is very much like, good for you. Like I know you'll do something good. Like good on you. I respect that. Have you thought about it? Yeah. Good. Crack on. My mum is panic, worry. Like I was like, I'm going to Belfast to see this YouTuber today. She was like, what do you mean? What, you didn't tell me that. What do you mean? Like, do you know there are gangs in Belfast? I'm like, what are you talking? Like, why go to the most negative thing straight away? So they're different. So mum, bad, dad reacts good. Great balance. Here I am.
And one more thing which you mentioned was, I know it's normally not a thing I discuss on the podcast, but breakups.
Yeah.
I feel like many people watching this are young and they probably go through it. How did you deal with one if you had one?
How did I deal with a breakup? How did I deal? I focused on myself. Yeah. My first breakup at 20-ish, 21 years old, I gave this person everything. She was my life. And most youngsters go through that period where that is just the case. And I turned to the gym, as most guys do. I got jacked. I got super strong. I actually did like bodybuilding competitions. I did powerlifting competitions just because I got so into it.
I've seen one of your Instagram pictures and I'm like, this dude is jacked.
Used to be. I'm super skinny now because I run a lot. But I used to be like 20 kilos heavier. I was strong. I could squat 210. I could deadlift 260. Wow. I could bench 130 with a pause. Like I was strong, and you would never think that.
Yeah.
So the answer is I turned to the gym. I turned to myself and gave myself love for the first time, which is what a breakup can allow you to do.
I guess it's part of learning in life as well.
Yeah.
That was a great answer. The next question is, what was your biggest regret in life?
Anyone that says that they have no regrets, I'm going to say it right now. And you've probably done it because I've said it in the past. Like I'm okay that I have regrets. I'm okay with it. And some of my regrets, I wish I did different A-levels. I wish I tried harder at school with my academics. I wish I went to a different university. I wish I did a different degree. Actually, scrap that. I wish I didn't go to university. I would have loved to have had the option of an apprenticeship. I would have maybe considered going into work straight away, or I would have considered starting my own business. Yes, I've got to where I am now because of what I've been through, blah, blah, blah. But
life could have been better.
Life could have been 10 times better.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here right now if I'd made hundreds of millions. Maybe I would if we met, but
yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, there are some small regrets, nothing huge. Maybe sometimes how I treated people in the past.
Yep.
Yeah, I regret that. Yes, I've learned and I'm not like that anymore, but it still doesn't mean I wish I didn't do it, you know? So sometimes I feel like having no regrets is a bit of a cop-out.
I like that a lot.
As long as you can identify that you've actually changed and done something about it, you know.
Most people give the cliche answer of like, I don't have any regrets. And I have started to now, even in my podcast, I have started to say that I used to be one of those guys who say, I have no regrets because everything happened in life has brought me to where I am today. But I realized that no, there are certain regrets, which if you think about it, it could have made my life even better.
Yeah.
But now we're here. So
yeah,
it's part of life, but there are regrets always.
Indeed.
The next question is your top 3 books about mindset, if you do love reading.
The Unfair Advantage.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Ash Ali, Hassan Kubba, 100%. Go read that, guys. If you have a slot to read a new book, definitely. It's a very. I'm guessing you've read it.
I've read the book. It's the best book I read last year.
Yeah.
By not because I know them in person, but because the book actually is that good, and the part about perspective of like your unfair advantage, how being rich and being poor is an unfair advantage, and just gave it good perspective.
It's great. It's almost like it gives you for me, it was like I almost felt guilty about my unfair advantages, and reading that and being like, oh, actually, I can actually use them to really benefit everything. Yeah, it was great. It was a mind switch for me. Just being born where we're born, being lucky. It's like whatever. Let's use it. Let's take it all.
Exactly.
You know? So I love that book.
It's basically the ultimate level of being grateful. You know how people say, be grateful, but you don't know what to be grateful for. Yeah. That book literally tells you everything you need to be grateful for.
Yeah. 2 other books. Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yep.
Have you read it?
I haven't read it, but I know the book.
Thinking Fast and Slow. It's basically it breaks down your brain into type 1 and type 2, and it's like, you know, when you're sometimes walking somewhere and you don't actually consciously think, like, how did I get it? Or when you're driving and you're like, whoa, I reached
to one destination to the next one without knowing,
and you don't consciously give that thought. I think that's System 1. System 2 is when you snap out and you're like, you consciously have to use. It's like if I said to you 7 times 6, you'd be like, you have to try to think. And learning about the 2 systems is very interesting, and trying to utilize the conscious part of your brain more and more, and to try and take hold of your monkey in the front of your brain that drives your emotional responses. It's really good. It's interesting. And another book. Probably, I enjoyed Sapiens.
Okay.
I thought it's not like a productivity or like a self-development book, but it was interesting to learn about humans and where we came from and what we did, you know?
I think I really want to dive into other genre, like other categories of books, because perspective is a big thing in my life, and like your perspective to life, I get really fascinated and interested in like, how do you might see this toy in a different way to me seeing this toy. So
is that Coley?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, you know him?
I know cricket.
Oh, you know?
Yeah.
Are you a cricket fan as well?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, you watch cricket?
Yeah, of course. Not of course, but yeah, I do.
Oh, wow. So you know all the cricket normal stuff and everything. So,
Yes.
So which sports do you love the most then?
Basketball is my number one.
Okay.
Love basketball. I was supposed to be born in the US. Like I'm convinced. I'm convinced of it.
Are you a Lakers or what?
I am. I'm a LeBron fan over any other club. So actually, like, yeah, that's definitely a cop-out supporter. But I love LeBron. I love basketball. What else? Like athletics as well. It's a random one, but I had Adam Jamili on my podcast, who's a GB sprinter, and like talking to him, I was just like, wow. Telling me about Usain Bolt. He was like, oh yeah, I was with Usain Bolt like a few months ago. I'm like, wow. I'm not the biggest football fan, but like rugby, that was at school. I played rugby and cricket at school. So they're my two that I played.
Are you a bowler or a batsman?
Bit of both. I'd be
all round.
I'd probably bat 6 or 7. And when I was younger, I was pace. But nowadays, like I'm just not the biggest guy, so I can do a bit of leggy. You know?
Yeah. That's what I have changed to the middle order, just a bit of spin, and that's it. The final question for today's podcast is: what are your 3 habits that got you where you are today?
First thing that I think has been most important to me is self-awareness, and it's not a habit, but you can get in the habit of being self-aware. So it's stopping, taking time to think and reflecting on your life, how you've acted with people, and how you want to be perceived. That was the first thing. And actually YouTube helped with that, because when I did my first video, I was like, what are you talking about? Why do you look like that on camera? Like you look stupid. So that made me change. Self-awareness was very, very important. Another habit, I think running has become a habit that's become very important for me. I don't meditate. I don't go to the gym anymore. So the only real time I have to myself is when I run for an hour.
You run for an hour nonstop? Yesterday,
I ran like a 10K and it was about 45 minutes or something. But sometimes further, sometimes shorter.
I do 5K in that time.
Nah, you'll get better. Keep doing it. You'll get faster. But for me, I'm now good enough at running where it's therapy. I'm in my space. I'm thinking about things. No phone, no laptop. So that's another really good habit for me. The third habit, what was the question? To make me
3 habits
to bring me where I am today.
To go where you go. Yeah, basically.
Choosing the time I spend with people carefully.
Nice.
Yeah, there's the saying that you are the product of the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Yep.
I probably only surround myself constantly with a few, and it's important, because people can drag you down or people can drag you with them, and really lead you to where you want to go. So yeah, I've been very selective with who I spend my time with.
I really like that. And I like the habit of running, which you have a lot, because I tried running. I ran for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I went from not being able to run for 5 minutes to being able to run constantly for like 40 minutes. And I've done a 5K. Yeah. Then my best time was 38 minutes.
It's good.
And for 5K, the thing which started to happen was my legs would start like what do you say?
Is it lactic acid or tightness or?
Not tightness, but the front bone would be just hurting or anything like that. So I would be just
on your shin, like shin
on
splint.
my shin, exactly. The shins would just start paining.
Yeah.
So I just stopped. But yeah,
if it hurts too much, don't do it, or run on grass, or just don't run.
I just do it, meditate and gym.
Yeah.
But I need to do 8K steps. That's my goal this year. 8K steps every day, which I need to start. I haven't made the time for it yet, because if I tell myself I'm going to wake up at 7 o'clock, that's not happening. My eyes will open at 8:30, then like 30 more minutes, and then I wake up at 9:30.
Well, you're doing well with the gym. You're day 6.
I'm on day 6 out of 200. Today is going to be day 7. So
you'll end up going more than 200 times.
So if I do, that's excellent. But that's kind of the goal. I think I have done an average. If I do gym like 3 or 4 days a week, I'll reach like 200.
Okay.
So that's why I have averaged it. But if I reach more,
I reckon you'll get hooked, and you'll just be, you're going to be a Gymshark sponsored athlete by the end of the year. You're going to be jacked.
If I do, I'm just going to be like, you know what, guys, another inspirational thing for me anyway. But once again, Phil, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Pleasure.
And I really appreciated your time coming on, sharing your journey. Guys, if you don't follow Phil on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the links in the description, and the podcast notes if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify. And thank you once again, Phil.
Yeah, pleasure. You'll have to come on mine next.
I will definitely.
Watch out for that one.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.